soaring arch and green domed courthouse as a backdrop. Amel Ranger speaks.
All right. Well, good afternoon. My name is Jeremy Sweat, and I'm the superintendent at Gateway Arch National Park. On behalf of the National Park Service and Department of the Interior, I want to welcome you all today. I'd like to thank Secretary of the Interior Haaland and Mayor Jones for joining us today. I'd also like to thank our Arch Alliance partners from the City of St. Louis, Bi-State Development, Gateway Arch Park Foundation, Great Rivers Greenway, and Jefferson National Parks Association. Behind me, the second major renovation is underway to the Old Courthouse since it was completed in 1862. The project was jointly funded by the National Park Service and by donations from our philanthropic partner, Gateway Arch Park Foundation. So I want to thank the foundation and their donors for making this possible. When many people think of the National Park Service, they often think of large natural parks like Yellowstone or Great Smoky Mountains National Park. But the majority of our 429 units are actually historic sites, many of which tell some of our nation's most challenging and complicated histories. We tell the story of the fight for freedom during the Revolutionary War at places like Bunker Hill and Valley Forge. And we tell the story of the fight for freedom at places like Freedom Riders National Monument in Anniston, Alabama. We protect and interpret civil rights sites such as Brown versus Board of Education, Little Rock Central High School, and Women's Rights National Historic Site. National parks ensure that we do not forget those times when our nation failed to live up to our values, sometimes with tragic consequences at places like Washita Battlefield and Sand Creek Massacre National Historic Site. From Civil War battlefields to Japanese-American incarceration sites, national parks protect places where Americans fought for freedom and for equality. The Old Courthouse is a physical reminder of the mistakes of our past and of our progress as a nation in the fight for equality, freedom, and justice for all Americans. Investments in this important place help ensure that visitors can remember and learn about our past and help to ensure a more just and humane future for all people. It's now my pleasure to introduce Secretary of the Interior, Deb Haaland.
First Native American Secretary steps up to the podium.
Thank you so much. I hope everyone is doing well today. It's so great to be here in St. Louis, and thank you so much, Superintendent, for that very kind introduction. And a special thank you to the Gateway Arch National Park team for hosting us today. Sorry. You know, it's never lost on me how lucky I am to travel to some of these sites and be in such beautiful cities, stunning places like this for my day job. It's an honor to be here. And you all know just how iconic the Gateway Arch is and the economic benefit to the community that it sustains. But I think a lot of people don't know that right here on America's public lands, Gateway Arch National Park is helping tell the story of America. Known as the Gateway to the West, the park and the city were part of Thomas Jefferson's vision of a unified nation and St. Louis's role in connecting the East and West Coast during the 19th century. But we know that our nation's story was not always one of unity or even respect for the first stewards of these lands. That's why the National Park Service stewards of this special place are determined to help tell the true story of key individuals and groups who explored, exploited, and inhabited the American West. Alongside the arch is the Old Courthouse, the site of the first two trials of the pivotal Dred Scott case in 1847 and 1850. It's also where Virginia miners' case for women's right to vote came to trial in the 1870s. Together, these sites help us to share a more complete and inclusive understanding of the places and people that shaped our nation's history. That's part of the magic of the National Park Service and the way in which the Department of the Interior is determined to tell America's story. But for decades, critical infrastructure improvements at this park and the national parks across America have not gotten the attention they deserved. That is leading to not just deteriorating structures, but to things that inhibit how guests experience walkways, parking lots, and even the restrooms. That is changing with the Biden-Harris administration as it deploys historic resources as part of President Biden's Investing in America agenda. The Great American Outdoors Act, a bipartisan law that I helped to champion when I was in Congress, drives investments in improving visitor experiences, bolstering climate resilience, and boosting the economy by creating good-paying jobs. I've traveled across the country to see how these investments are having a real impact on visitors, wildlife, and local economies. Improving visitor safety, repaving roads, protecting historic structures, and safeguarding against the impacts of the climate crisis are ways that GOA is being felt in every corner of America. And which is why today I'm so thrilled to announce new investments from the Great American Outdoors Act for Gateway Arch National Park. With a new $17 million investment, the park will now move on to the next phase of restoration of the Old Courthouse, which will help restore the upper floors and exterior of the building. When this project is complete, the Old Courthouse will have improved accessibility that will allow increased visitation to this historic place, modernized utilities that will improve the experiences, and new exhibits that will tell an even clearer story of the Dred Scott case and its impacts on American history. This is one of several ways the department is investing in visitor experience and increasing access for communities right here in St. Louis. With funding from the Outdoor Recreation Partnership Program, we awarded Great Rivers Greenway nearly $1 million to upgrade the old chain of Roxbridge Park. I know we have folks from the Great Rivers with us today. Thank you so much for being here. And thanks to that investment, the group has made a series of improvements, including upgrading roads and parking, enhancing visitor safety, bolstering conservation, and restoring nature trails. And of course, we're just getting started. Through President Biden's Investing in America agenda, we're making historic investments to strengthen and rebuild crumbling infrastructure, create healthier outdoor spaces and habitats for people and wildlife, and prepare communities for the impacts of the climate crisis. In fact, this morning, I hosted a legacy pollution roundtable with state labor and community leaders here in Springfield. Legacy pollution touches the lives of millions of Americans across the country. Some live within just 1 mile of an abandoned coal mine or an orphaned oil and gas well, including right here in Missouri. These legacy pollution sites are environmental hazards and jeopardize public health and safety by contaminating groundwater, emitting noxious gases like methane, littering the landscape with rusted and dangerous equipment, creating flooding and sinkhole risks, and harming wildlife. The President's bipartisan infrastructure law is delivering the largest investment in history to tackle legacy pollution, including $11.3 billion for abandoned mine remediation and $4.7 billion for orphaned well sites plugging, remediation, and restoration activities. Last month, we granted Missouri $5.8 million to help address the abandoned mine lands in the state, which is in addition to the $5.8 million they received last year. Thanks to the bipartisan infrastructure law, the state will investigate, design, and undertake reclamation projects and, importantly, address the vast majority of currently inventoried AML problems. Earlier this year, we also provided the state of Missouri with another $5 million to begin work assessing and inventorying thousands of orphaned oil and gas wells, including those with high methane emissions, and prioritize them for future plugging and remediation efforts. The state is eligible to receive up to nearly $27 million in additional grant funding to continue this work. All of these investments will create jobs in construction, conservation, and land management, and they will spur economic revitalization in communities across this state. Thank you all for joining us today. I'm so happy to be here with all of you, and I'm so happy that you're all here to learn more about the Gateway Arch National Park. And with that, I'm so honored to turn it over to the Mayor of St. Louis. Thank you.
Mayor Tishaura Jones steps up to the podium.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm grateful to join the Secretary of the Interior, Deb Haaland, the Gateway Arch Foundation, the National Park Service, and representatives from Congresswoman Cori Bush's office, as well as our own Greg Hayes, who runs our Parks, Recreation, and Forestry Department, as we announce additional funding for the Old Courthouse renovation project. Additionally, I'd like to recognize the Osage, Kickapoo, Kaskaskia, and other nations whose land we stand on today. I want to acknowledge Lynn Jackson, the great-great-granddaughter of Dred and Harriet Scott and president of the Dred Scott Heritage Foundation, for her work to keep her ancestors' legacy alive through her civil rights advocacy. And of course, welcome again to St. Louis, Secretary Haaland. St. Louis is incredibly fortunate to have an excellent working relationship with the Biden-Harris administration. Through their leadership in the American Rescue Plan Act, we've been able to keep people in their homes and businesses open during the COVID-19 pandemic. Now their administration's bipartisan infrastructure law will hopefully allow us to expand our transit system, build a new terminal at Lambert Airport, make long overdue upgrades to our streets and water infrastructure, and expand access to the internet. I'm grateful for President Biden's partnership and support to ensure that all St. Louisans can thrive. The Old Courthouse is a symbol of progress for our city and our nation, as well as a physical reminder of our shared history. It reminds us that while the United States was founded on the principles of liberty, justice, and freedom for all, we have not always lived up to those ideals. After all, it was on these very steps that our ancestors were sold into slavery. This is also where hundreds of enslaved people, most famously Dred and Harriet Scott, first sued for their freedom. This is the building where the doors of justice were open to slaves. Back then, judges, lawyers, and even white male jurors recognized the right to freedom under Missouri law. St. Louis has always been unique, and before the Civil War, we were unique in our recognition of the rights of enslaved people. Just as the Gateway Arch is the gateway to the West, the Old Courthouse stands as a symbol of justice, the gateway to freedom. In the sprint through the American history textbook, students only learn a few details about Dred and Harriet Scott, slaves who sued for freedom and lost at the Supreme Court. They might be taught that this devastating loss solidified slavery's grip on our nation and ultimately led to the Civil War, the deadliest conflict in American history. But what is rarely taught, however, is that Dred and Harriet Scott were just two of more than 300 slaves who sued for their freedom, and their fight for justice began in this very building. This is why this renovation project is so critical and special. The preservation of the Old Courthouse reminds us that the stain of slavery and the struggle for civil rights is not distant history. That struggle continues today. Preservation of this building will allow not just students, but people from every background across our city and our nation to understand our shared American history. And now, thank you all for coming, and now I'll open it up to any questions.